Peace, 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 family. We're just going to do a quick introduction of a little history this morning. I always like to give my brothers and sisters references and something to compare to. And that's what I call it elementary, because a lot of my younger students, what they're doing is able to combat Eurocentric propaganda, and not from a place of anger, but from a place of scholarship. When I tell brothers and sisters, we must get out of religious dogma if we understand the sciences. Our American prophet Noble Drew Ali told us, if you don't do anything, claim your nationality. There's nothing illegal about that, Moors. We do things legally and lawfully. And if you want to understand civics and operate in civics, you must study real civics. If you want to study law, you must study all law, all color of law. You can't listen to people on YouTube and things, and they read a line or a sentence, and then tell you to go get some paperwork and take out somebody else's name and put yours on, and it's not even notarized. It's certain things, it's certain prereqs that have to go along with paperwork and doing things legally and lawfully. And that's all I'm saying, Moors. Even like when I'm speaking about the Bar Association, when I say who's your legal representation, not your attorney, not your lawyer. These are things you must understand precedent laws and precedent cases, so when things come up, you can say, for the record, Your Honor, and blah blah blah, for things can be done the right way. There's no thing as Moore's law. It's a such thing as international law, Moors. Don't let no one connotate you. You must go with the denotation, and you can't let no one arbitrarily explain something to you. I would never tell a brother or a sister or a Moor or an empress to do something that I'm not doing. For them to go try something and get locked up, and then when that happens, no one's there to help them out. That's not what this science is about, Moors. That's why our American prophet Noble Drew Ali said, if you want a European sheiks, I'll give them to you. It's certain things we must study, man. You know, no disrespect to nobody. I love everybody. But when brothers and sisters give themselves titles like, per se, the title of a sheik, well, that's why if you understand how Noble Drew Ali set the Moorish Science Temple of America up, sheik, when you become a sheik, it wasn't elected. It was appointed. And appointed means that it has something must be under your fez. Something must be under your turban. Wisdom, knowledge. Are you a divine minister? Are you a divine lawyer? Is something have to be about you? If not, a sheik was just like a trustee. Read the bylaws. Read this before the meetings. We are noble men, and if you were the dap and the sheik, you're supposed to operate in a certain essence. And that's all I'm saying, Moors. A divine warning by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. The Prophet warned all Muslims, governors, ordered to read the proclamation at each meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical agitating speeches while at work or in the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. My 2 cents, health, and wealth. And when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course, Moors. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings towards the temple or the prophet or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out a divine pleas to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways by order of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Do that sound like something outside of the law? This is a holy and divine movement. holy and divine. I want to read something else. This is our unity card. But when I say we don't diss anything, if you understand the essence of things and you study, especially if you say you are an adept or a sheik, this is your nationality and identification card for the Moorish Science Temple of America and birthrights for the Moorish Americas, etc. What Moorish America? All the Moorish Science Temple of America. All the Moorish Science. Once you a member, I don't care if you nationalize Chicago, Detroit, whatever, you are more, you should be able to go to all the temples if they're operating right under the Prophet's bylaws. If they're operating correctly under the Prophet's bylaws. You should be able to go in a temple with your ID, with the right, proper credentials. That's why some temples are not set up right. Those ones that's calling this a more sovereign movement, that's bullcrap. I'm telling you, that's bullcrap, and I'm always say that. But we honor all the divine prophets: Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius. May the blessings of the God, our Father Allah, be upon you that carry this card. I do hereby declare that you are a Muslim under the divine laws of the Holy Quran of Mecca. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. There's a lot of things that we can critique, but as you climb with your wisdom, you understand the good that some of our brothers was doing, and we build on that. When you are a true teacher and you are a studier, that's what a true doctor, that's what a true adept does. There's certain things that he's gonna do. There's certain things that an adept should be interested in that some might not be in. So, with that being said, Moors, I always want to give references because a lot of people will be asking me like, yeah, they understand Moorish science, but what about history? And understanding who you are and understanding in academia, when I tell brothers and sisters, the first universities was instituted by Moors. In Spain, University of Salamanca. So we always were educated brothers and sisters. It's just the wisdom was took and connotated and switched the words linguistic apartheid and try to dry up the breadcrumbs. I can show you all through history that where no wisdom came from the West, all wisdom come from the East. And that's masonry, that's all wisdom, the zodiac laws, everything. A lot of people connotate you. How Moors, how do you think a lot of Moors connotated as pirates were able to travel the seas and trade and take animals to other places where they weren't indigenous to the land? You must understand the stars, the travel was north, south, east, and west. It had to be some under your cap to understand how to navigate. And then when we speak of things, Moors, about who enslaved who, brothers is killing brothers today. So a lot of things we argue about really don't even make sense. When brothers say the Moors killed this or did that, I say yes, some may have had part in it, we know, but you can't say that as a collective group. Just like when you do real history, when a person is not giving you the whole story, like when they show a story of King Leopold in the Congo, and certain individuals are cut it in bits and pieces, but we tell a whole story how Belgium was taken over, how they killed President Lubamba back then, and how they dressed the soldiers in that army suit with the fez, just like Hitler had his army generals wearing the fez, and they studied the Quran. Some did it by force, some did it willingly. Just like back then you had some Moors, when they was under captivity and re-captive again, they were Majoris or Moriscos. So it's just some things we just understand in history, and we don't come from no biased place, but if we're going to quote history and research, our research must be, how can I say it, synchronized. So, one of my students, he was asking me about history, and I say, brothers, a lot of times when we research things and call it quoting history, if you don't understand language and research language and what words mean and translate them and do the research, the etymology, you would get so lost. So one of my students, he came home and he was asking me, so his mother called, he was like, well, they wanted him to write about slavery. And I said, well, you don't have to write about slavery. He wanted to write about first century history. So I gave him first century history. And it's a lot of history that we might not like, and some might not like your candor, but it's history, and history is always recorded. So when certain educators speak of the transatlantic slave trade, and then I tell a lot of my students, well, before that, you must research the Arab slave trade and how millions of Africans, I think, were enslaved by certain individuals. And when you research that scholarly research, it blows your mind. And then there's so many research books and history books like this one, White Cargo, The Forgotten History of Britain's White Slaves in America. You know, and I don't want to dig into this because we're going to lecture on this. We're going to speak upon this history, but I don't want to dig all the way into it. But it shows archaeology proof when archaeologists found certain bones and things, you know, of certain individuals. And it's a deep, deep story. And a lot of these stories they don't want to speak on because it's buried in certain libraries. Also, one of my other history books, I have it in a couple of days, it's called They Were White and They Were Slaves. And it's just history. And I give students something to compare to. Everything was written, so there's no reason for a person to be upset. That's why I say history is not religion. History trumps religion because it's science. And when you're dealing with science, hold on one second, Morris. And when you're dealing with science, you remove a belief system because a belief can be based on a lie. So we're going to talk about that, you know, a little later. That's just some history, Morris. Another one, history book I always share with my students. When I say history is recorded, is Prince Among Slaves, the true story of an African prince sold into slavery in the American South. When I say these are histories, they only started our kids off in the 17th century when they were slaves. I mean, all through this book, it talks, one of the chapters is called The White Turban. You know, they talk about this prince that was kidnapped, you know, and put into slavery. Abd al-Rahman, Ibrima, a Muslim slave who in 1807 was recognized by an Irish ship surgeon as the son of an African king who had saved his life many years earlier. The prince, as he had become known to the local Natchez, Mississippi residents, had been captured in a war when he was 26 years old, sold to slave traders and shipped to America. Slave though he was, Ibrahima was an educated, artistic man, and he was made overseer of the large cotton and tobacco plantation of his master, who refused to sell him to the doctor for any price mores. After years of petitioning by Dr. Cox and others, Ibrahima finally gained his freedom in 1828 through the intercession of U.S. Secretary of State Henry Clay. 66 years old, Ibrahima sailed for Africa the following year with his wife and died there of fever just 5 months after his return. It's just history, man. Olada Ikwuana, this is his autobiography. He recounts his life. He was also kidnapped in Africa as a boy and sold into slavery. And he speaks upon his life. He narrates his own life. His skill, his cunning, his looks. And I'm telling you, and he traces his bloodline back to Gad and Seir, back to Gad, which is the Igbo and the Igbo Moors genetically. And that's all you have to do is do the research. When people say scholarly research, you don't have to get upset. We research. Watch. Cultural evidence linking the Igbo to Gad. In 1789, Olada Ikwuana, this brother right here, an Igbo and former slave who lived in London, said he is the autobiography that the Igbos were one of the lost tribes of Israel and cited the many identical cultures, similarities between them and the Jews. When the missionaries came to Nigeria to evangelize Moors, they were dumbfounded to discover that the Igbo people practiced many Hebraic Jewish customs, which they could not have learned from anyone else Moors. It had to come from ancient practice of their former or from antiquity. We know from their foremothers and forefathers. For they had no Bibles and met no one with the Bible until the missionaries came along. Missionaries colonized. They came to colonize. It's just what it is. The Confederate Cherokees Moors. Although many so-called Indians, that's misnomer, nations fought in the Civil War, historians have given little attention to the role of Native Americans played in the conflict Moors. Indian nations did, in fact, suffer a higher percentage of casualties than any Union or Confederate state, and the war almost destroyed the Cherokee Nation. In the Confederate Cherokees Moors, the author W. Craig Gaines provides an absorbing account of the Cherokees' involvement in the early years of the Civil War, focusing in particularly on the actions of one group, John Drew's regiment of the Mounted Rifles. As the war began, the Cherokees were torn by internal political dissension and a simmering 30-year-old blood feud. Entry into the war on the Confederate side did little to resolve these intribal tensions Moors. One faction, loyal to Chief John Ross, formed a regiment led by John Drew's Ross, nephew by marriage. Another regiment was founded by Ross's rivals, Stan Wyatt. So what that's saying is, you see, when they join other people's fights, then you start having infighting. That's John Drew. When a person think a person's skin is light, like they can tell what nationality they are. Please. If the Moors ruled Spain for 700 years, what women were over there, they were having the relations or having a relationships with Moors. That's just simple science. And so, like a lot of brothers, and I love my Hebrew Israelite brothers. You know, I teach a lot of my brothers. We study, a lot of them study together, but a lot of them just so religious, and that's okay. You know, I'm not here to bash nobody. I'm here to build bridges. But a lot of times, if we don't understand language, we still get caught up in Greek wordings and things. But a lot of research Moors, like for instance, this is by the Time Life, and it's called The Nazis, the World War II. This is stuff that they recorded. When I tell brothers, you can get the Jewish Encyclopedia. It'll tell you, it'll break down everything, and you can highlight it. Be like, whoa, there's no reason to argue. They're telling you exactly what it is, because the history must be recorded. In this research, man, when you understand things, a lot of Hitler's speeches were in German. And it was just interesting to me that, he was explaining some things. Because when I was in high school, I interpret German a little bit, and I have the German lexicon, so I understand Sprache die Deutsch a little bit, but you know what I mean? But a lot of things were in German, so if you don't have the subtitles or take the study to research every word, no matter how long it takes, you won't know what these words mean, and you won't know what he's symbolizing and showing. He was showing, that was him. That you don't have to listen to me. He was showing you who the bastard was. He was saying, like, no, this the Hamite. He was showing you, like, nuh-uh, these are Sand people, the Turks. He was like, this the Orient, the Asiatic, the Hamite. You see what it's pointing down to. You don't have to, what it says. That's not my words. But history, a lot of times when you research and you study, you have sympathy for everybody. But you can dissect certain things. Because that's what more is supposed to do. When brothers and sisters ask me, well, what religion are you? I say, I'm not any religion. I'm an adept. I'm a scientist. I'm a 99th Moorish Master Muslim. So I can't rely to one religious creed to where I miss the essence of all of them. I'm under the Zodiac laws. I believe in the essence. I believe in sustainability. I believe in the fear. That's fire, earth, air, river. And that's something that all of us can agree on. If we take that away, all life will be gone off this earth plane, Morris. But if we're going to be studying philosophers, we must remove our religious dogma and research history to be like, well, yeah, I feel you, but my religion is my belief when a person comes like that, and that's okay. So, I'm going to leave you with this, Morris. Remember it. In 1928, the Moorish Zionist Temple of the Moorish Jews. We look in the background, look at the American flag, and look at the other flag in the back. If you could take a good look. This is in 1928. This is the Moorish Zionist Jews. They didn't create Israel state until 1948. I love you all, Moors. Love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, health, and wealth. One more thing. The lecture in July. It will not be broadcasted, but if you want to log on, all we're asking for is a $20 donation. That $20 donation would allow you access. I will ship you one of our books, and you will be able to preview both lectures, one in Detroit and one in Flint, Michigan. It's going to be very, very, very informative. We're going to teach a lot of history. We're going to teach a lot of civics, and we're just going to remove the veil of religious dogma and let all our brothers and sisters know that you're not Negro, black, or colored. This fez, the turban, is a national headdress. Remember that, Moors. We operate on love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, and my 2 cents, Moors, health and wealth. Peace.